Hey guys, what's up? It's Schla, and I figured I'd just get the recording started, but we're not really in the best of situations right now. Um, we have quite the predicament upon us. This is just not a really great situation, so we're just gonna have to try to, rough it out or something. I don't know what I'm gonna do. But, yeah, we got in this vehicle at a fairly good time, but now it's no longer such a good time anymore. And, as you can probably hear, we have to have the defroster on full force. There's no time for anything less than full force. So I'm trying to shout, but truthfully speaking, I don't have too much energy to be shouting. This week it really wasn't great this weekend, I'm going to be honest. Despite having a 3-day vacay, I'm not really feeling rejuvenated, like I'm really not. And I really wonder how this sounds. I'm really not feeling rejuvenated, and that's obviously some type of problem, because I've been here a billion times, and it's like, I'm trying to catch a break or something, and I'm just not catching that break. Like, I keep waiting and waiting and thinking things are going to be getting better, and they're not exactly getting better. So I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I feel like I'm being spread too thin, and then of course I'm legitimately starting to wonder and consider whether I got to be starting to cancel this show, because this show is like the main, it's one of the main works I do. Now fortunately, I actually got a lot done. I uploaded a lot of videos. So I think today is January 20th, and I believe I am scheduled in uploads through like February 6th, maybe. So I finally, because I was really at the edge, man. Man, I was at the edge. I was like, I didn't know what I was doing, And yeah, man, I was at the edge, and yeah, I was at the edge. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was rough. It was terrible. And so yeah, I was on the edge. I was on the edge. I don't know why I keep saying that. I guess I'm running out of things to say. I'm forgetting what I was talking about, because it's very distracting because of the loud noise that I'm dealing with. But yeah, anyways, how y'all doing today? Let's slow down a little bit. How you guys doing today? How you guys doing? I'm doing all right, but like I said, these days it just you wonder, like, really how long you're going to be able to keep pushing and keep trucking through, It's a lot. It's a lot of stuff to deal with, and you wonder how you're going to keep doing it. I don't know. And honestly, my life is still extremely fortunate, and I always think that, like, my life, it's so fortunate, and I still feel this way. So I can't imagine what other people feel with what they gotta go through. you know, and of course there's people much luckier than me, but I still feel like, you know, I really, when I'm complaining about stuff, it's just always brought back to that. And I don't even know if that's necessarily the greatest thing, because it's sort of like I'm used to invalidating myself because there's a truth in that. There's a truth in that I shouldn't really have much of a right to be upset. But what I'm saying is, what's not really great about it is that other people, for their own mental sanity, they probably never allow themselves to be invalidated in that way. Like, because I'm always thinking about the big picture. So I can see pretty clearly, you know, what's what. I can see whether an expectation of mine is too high, or whether a certain thing I'm feeling is relatively speaking invalid. It's not difficult for me to see that, but I'm not entirely sure how mentally healthy it is. You know, it's probably not, like, because for the human mind, I mean, the human mind, it likes to have its ego stroked. It craves acknowledgement. It craves validation. And so when you're somebody who, like me, is pretty aggressive about, well, is this fair? Well, is this valid? Most people, there's not even a second thought about whether something they're thinking or saying is valid, because it's just not in their best interest to question themselves. It's really what is in their best interest, and probably in their best health's interest, is to really reinforce what they already believe, and things that they already think, if that makes any sense. It's like, you know, I just think that that is what most people end up dealing with, right? Like, that's just the truth. I think most people, they, that's what they deal with. Now, obviously, there's some caveats to that. And in some ways, it actually isn't healthy. I think there's a lot of people who do what I'm describing, where they never really deal with opposing points of view, and they're actually very, like, sensitive and not well-rounded people. Um, I don't know. So on the other hand, maybe it's not even within. I guess a more accurate thing is, because within your own best interest, it's a bit too broad of a term. It depends. I mean, there's your actual best interest, which is like, you know, what your actual, what you would actually be best off engaging with or doing. And then there's like, what's in the best interest of your ego? What's in the best interest of your comfort? And those are oftentimes two very different things, because comfort, if it's truly you being your best, that comes as a additional, like, that sort of comes as an afterthought. You do achieve comfort through extreme work, and you know, eventually, I guess, if you make enough money, and you've really earned it, you earn comfort. But what I'm saying is, if you choose comfort from the start without earning it, it's usually not in your best interest, and you're usually not the person who you're really meant to be, or, you know, you're not operating at your maximum potential. So that's why I'm saying that best interest phrase, it's tricky, you know? It's just tricky. So it's kind of difficult to pinpoint, and but that's why I'm clarifying it, because there's definitely nuance to that. But that's just what I notice from people. I think more and more people just their ability, and I mean, humans' ability to have foresight was never good, but having foresight, thinking ahead, thinking about the future, it's becoming more and more important. And it already has been. It's become a deciding factor in the haves and the have-nots, because the people's parents who thought ahead have given their children an exceptional advantage because they thought ahead, they didn't spend their money, and they saved it all in stocks. And then now you have the generation where, you know, maybe 5 or 10% of us are like uh, trust fund kids, or essentially that, or, you know, nepo babies. And it's probably about 5 to 10% of the population, whereas everybody else is working and living normally, and we're not getting paid enough to do anything. So, and, you know, again, I actually can see there, you know, because I really do like to see both sides of things, even when it's sometimes an evil concept. You could make a good argument for some type of inequality if it was based on like merit. You know, if it was like, well, you know, does this person really deserve it? And is this person like a really mindful person who appreciates and is grateful for what they have? And the answer to that question is almost usually no. I mean, a lot of these people, like, they're rich, but they're just rich because their dad was successful or their mom was successful. You know, they're not, these people are not rich or successful because of like anything to do with themselves. I mean, sometimes, again, like a father or mother or both, they might have, I guess, good genetics, but then their child might not really necessarily have that. So you have to wonder, do they deserve the capital? And my answer to that would be no. My answer is that we have to start to look into how you could allocate capital more precisely based on worth. You know, that's like, that's the thing. Because there's a lot of smart people out there who don't have resources, and then there's plenty of dumb people who do. And over time, that is going to cause like a lot of destructive things to occur. It just will, you know? So, it's just something to think about. It's just something to think about. Yeah, so I was thinking about a lot of things, but ooh, good thing I actually remember this. Um, because I was gonna forget about it, but I actually had this dream last night that, you know, it wasn't scary, it wasn't a nightmare, but it wasn't a good dream. I mean, it was kind of like a sad dream. I was basically hanging out with some of my old friends from like, you know, elementary school and high school, and we were going to see a movie. And for some reason, they were doing all this stuff like getting rental cars to do it. So I don't, presumably the movie theater was far away, but it doesn't, that part didn't really make that much sense to me. But I guess it could be, it could have like a esoteric meaning, you know. I'm not really sure. That's likely what it would be. Some kind of, like I said, you know, there could be an esoteric meaning to it. And what it was is we had these rental cars, and for some reason I drove in my own car, but I was still being given like responsibility over a rental car. And when we got to the movie theater, everything was kind of fine at first, but they told me where my rental car was, and I was kind of confused because I already showed up in my car. So like when they were telling me where my rental car was parked, I was kind of thinking like I don't really know how that makes any sense because I didn't need I don't even know. It just seems like it just seemed like such a silly situation for me. Um yeah, because like I don't know, the rental, like I already had my car, so what am I going to do with the rental? I couldn't drive both. And then obviously somebody drove them there, presumably. Although now that I'm thinking about it now, I guess it's possible the rental car was already there, but in the dream, I think it was implied that we all like drove rental cars there, which again, it doesn't really make any sense. And even in the dream, I was thinking like, well, why wouldn't we just why wouldn't we just like all take a car together? Because I don't think there was that many people. We'd probably only need 2 cars, and I think between like the 6 of us or whatever, it wouldn't be that difficult for all of us to just fit into 2 cars. I'm not really sure what the whole rental car thing was about, but when we went into the movie theater, there was like a gift shop that we were looking at, and I was really thinking over some expensive things as that's really just a daily regular part of my life at this point. And trying to think. Was thinking over some expensive things, but I figured, hey, we're still here. I can think about it and decide after the movie. Like I don't really need to be stressing about it and make this big purchase now. This expensive thing I wanted in the gift shop, it was like it was still going to be there after the movie, and we might as well. So then we watched the movie, and when we first get there, I'm like, where's my ticket? And my friends were like, oh, we don't know. I don't know what happened to the tickets. Like, I lost them. Because they had showed me them printed out before we left, and then he just said he lost them, didn't know where they were. So that was really stressful for me because we just kind of walked in and sat down, but we didn't have our tickets. And he said that, I guess if worse comes to worse, he was gonna try to, you know, go into his phone and like verify that he had purchased enough tickets for all of us or something, or show like the proof of it. But I was still really like pretty upset and stressed out and disappointed that he just like went and did that. I don't know. It's just and then anyways, like after we were getting out of the theater, somehow we got into this pretty big argument with me about the rental car, and apparently my rental car, which for some reason was supposed to be a Subaru, and I don't know if it was a Canon actual car that they had made or not, but it probably was an older Subaru sedan. I want to say it was kind of an odd car, and yeah, anyways, it's like I'm trying to think. It was apparently being blamed that it was my fault, and everybody was asking me, where's the key to the car? What's going on? And I was like, you guys never gave me a key to my rental car. And then they kept arguing with me, and I kept saying no. Like, you guys never did that. And then everybody was like mad at me because they were still kind of taking it as my fault and siding with the other guy. And then something happened where we kind of, I guess went our own ways because I'm not really sure why. Maybe they were mad at me, and I was upset too because like I was really confused because I knew for certain nobody ever gave me any key to a rental car or even told me about a rental car until I got there. So obviously somebody else drove it. And then I think after a while randomly my friend my friends come back and say, "Yeah, okay, we have the key and this is the car." And then I was like, "So where how did you find the key?" And then one of my friends was just like silently gesturing towards the guy who had been mean to me the whole time. And so like it had turned out it was just in his bag, the key to the car, and it wasn't my fault. It was like his fault for losing it. And then I tried talking to that guy about it cuz obviously I'm like, "Dude, you know how did you do that to me?" And then it turned out you had the key the whole time. And he just flat out ignored me for the whole rest of the time, which ultimately wasn't that long because then the dream ended shortly after. But I honestly think maybe the point of this dream, it's just kind of how I tend to feel in a lot of situations where it's like I feel like I think of things and then nobody else does, and I feel like I um am thinking ahead and nobody else does, and I double check things and I really, I'll make sure something's in my bag, and then it seems like nobody else does. And so I almost think that this dream was a reflection of like how my brain and my body process and get stressed out about interactions with other people, you know? I think that's like legitimately now that I'm speaking it out and thinking about it, that's what I think the meaning is that I mean maybe there wasn't really much of a meaning other than that this is like, a bunch of things don't make sense. It's like, why are people having rental cars when we could just all carpool? Like, who came up with that idea? Why are we doing that? Like, this is oftentimes how my brain thinks and processes things, and why it's torturous, because other people on their ride to work in the morning, they're just processing the fact that they have to go to work. They might put some music on or be listening to a podcast, and or maybe talking or thinking to themselves. But again, nowadays I think a lot of people prefer noise. And that's what people do. And people, they don't really care if things are like not smart or not wise. Like they won't really think much about it. Or a lot of people, there's probably a giant chunk of the population that doesn't even notice when things don't add up or make sense, because again, it's funny, that expression, things don't add up. Part of the problem is a lot of people aren't even proficient in math, so they can't, if you can't even do basic math, it's difficult to see how you could calculate and compute what adds up or not, what's actually would be for the better or not. Like it makes sense that that wouldn't be possible for people. Because it won't add up right to them. If people are making miscalculations for things, then it's going to be a miscalculation. Sorry, I'm forgetting what I was saying, and I'm trying to remember. So yeah, something about, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. Sorry, I'm just tired. It's getting rough. I mean, my motivation is it's just low. Like, I haven't had a break in a long time, but and really what happens is then when I have day offs, like I just can't do anything because I end up just liking to talk and socialize. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, and I can't turn that down. I just can't turn it down. So, but yeah, I'm not entirely sure like where I'm going or what I'm trying to do. Like, I wanted to get my room cleaned last night, but it like didn't really. Well, not last night, last day. Yeah, sorry, not last night. I wanted to do that yesterday, and it just didn't transpire. You know, like it just didn't happen. Um, so I don't know. Yeah, sorry. I'm just thinking. Sorry. Um, obviously that Friday episode was a disaster, and then, you know, this episode, um, this episode was okay though. I feel like I had even more material to like talk about. I don't know if I really have enough time to delve into it, but I guess I will attempt to. Um, yeah, because I think walk switch law is done now. We're back to, because of the weather, no more walk switch law. It's really sad. So yeah, it's sad. It's sad that walk switch law is once again finished. Because it really helps to pass the time, but when the weather's like that, I just can't do it. The only spot I could do it is like right next to the road, but I've already talked about how like that's really inefficient and doesn't really make that much sense, like, because not only is there like a bunch of people driving by looking at me, which I'm trying to get over that, because it's like, how can you be a reporter or a content creator if you're worried about how other people think of you? Like, you know, I really have to get over that. But that still isn't like the main issue. The main issue is that there's going to be lots of road noise and car noise, and that's just not good. It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. I'm honestly like very tired. I really, I have to just admit it. I'm very tired. Wish I could have slept more. I really think I needed a day off today. And probably another day off. You know, when I was in school, I don't really remember feeling that way, but that's because school was so short. It's like you basically, yeah, like school's only like a 7 hour day. So now when I went to school, I could walk home. I think might have taken me about 30 minutes to walk home, but probably a smidge under that. Like, especially if I walked fast, it probably was like, yeah, if it was a smidge under that. So it could be like 20 something minutes or something like that. And you know what's funny is I think my dad, I think coming home, they were pretty interested in making me walk. But I think going to school, I'm pretty sure my dad still would have been willing to drive me in the morning. But I purposely didn't really want him doing that. Like, people probably could have continued to give me rides, but I purposely like rejected it, and I wanted to start walking. And it's kind of a shame. I think depending on the family I was in, I could have been forced to walk to and from school sooner. Because even all during like my other school years and stuff, it was like that. Um, you know, where I probably could have been walking home, and for some reason I was always driven home. I know it's definitely a luxury. It's something to be grateful for, but in retrospect, like I probably would have been better off if I could walk, or if my parents would have just forced me to walk. I mean, that over the course of, you know, all the years that I went to school, that's probably a good amount of gas money saved. I mean, it's short trips, but it would have put less wear on the car, and then it would have given me like better exercise, you know? But I was given the luxury of, you know, whether it was my parents and then my grandparents who were able to pitch in and drive me home from school, you know? And I guess it was probably for the better, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. because I feel guilty about it in retrospect. Like I kind of wish my family made me walk, but I think what's interesting is a lot of my opinions actually come from the fact that maybe like a lot of extra was given to me. You know how it's like, because some people have families like that where they would have just been like, we're not driving you to school. You know, like you're walking. Like there's probably most parents, most parenting is probably like that, you know? But for me, I was given a different thing, and then, eventually on my own, I changed my mind about it. But it's possible that, other people would have never, and they would have milked my situation further. That's completely possible too. Completely possible. That somebody, I think I say this all the time. I mean, even with getting a job, it's like I obviously needed to get a job, but my parents are being pretty lenient. Although I think eventually, at this point, they might have been getting a little bit pushy with me about work and stuff, because it's just, not even because they're like that. It's just because, you like concerned for your kid after a while, because you want them to be able to, you know, but you want them to be able to survive all right. But what I was getting at is I think it does actually change a lot of my perspectives on these things, because I was treated well. And then on my own fruition, I actually saw, witnessed, and calculated how it actually didn't make that much sense. Like how, if I'm walking to school, yeah, I mean, it's more work, but it's like it's healthier, it's less expensive, right? Like I was thinking of all these things where I think most people just didn't care, and they would have grabbed it. They would have grabbed at an opportunity to do something like that. They would have grabbed, and just tried to milk it. And I think that's really how a lot of humans are. That's where they end up. That's kind of what they're forced to think about things in that kind of a way. Like they have to think about survival, they have to think about all this stuff. And, you know, I guess in a way, it makes sense that they have to take what they can get, because they do. Like it's what they have to do. They have to take what they can get, because there's kind of this like fight for survival, and that's really how the system's set up. But I'm saying I really wasn't given that type of an experience. I mean, I wasn't rich by any means. I mean, we lived very like modestly. I mean, my parents, the thing I reference a lot is when they had those new home phones that had came out that were much smaller and thinner and like more rectangular. We still had our like ancient giant home phone, just cuz like it didn't break. And like I don't even think we got flat screen TVs. I mean, especially when it comes to like tech stuff, my dad just really resisted buying a lot of things. You know, like he just did. And so um that's like different because it's like there wasn't really as much of an imperative just because you just lived like reasonably, you know? And that was like a core thing about my dad, I guess, is that that was a big part of why I was given the upbringing I was given, is because, you know, he he was responsible. It wasn't that he was rich. It wasn't that I was rich. I wasn't really given a super spoiled upbringing. I mean, yeah, like I was the first of my friends to get a gaming computer, and it was an expensive laptop, but it wasn't, you know, it was still like a budget gaming laptop. It wasn't like, and they all railed against me, how spoiled I was, and they said all these things to me. And then, you know, I think within 2 or 3 years, they all had gaming laptops. You see what I'm saying? So it's obviously like a jealousy thing. And then it turns out they all have the same. Even though they're thinking I'm like rich or something, it's not that I'm rich, it's that, you know, my father just didn't indulge. You know, like it just wasn't, he wasn't indulgent. It took me like a really, oh, cuz I started the recording. Yeah, cuz I was saying like how is it 40 minutes? That means I took a while. I think I did still take a while to get here, but I think that that figure is not accurate. The 40 something minutes thing. Um so yeah. So yeah, I don't know what else there really is to say or talk about, you know. It's just it is what it is. No, I really want to stop saying that. I don't know why I keep saying that. I wanted to engineer that out of my vocab, you know. But yeah, it's time to get a grip. At least we made it. At least we made it. All right. Well, I'd say that it's been schla, and now it's time to buy schla. So, see you schla.